Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the Eastern Conference Finals. On one corner, you have the Miami Heat coming off of a very dominant victory against the Milwaukee Bucks. And on the other hand, you have the Boston Celtics back at it again in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Heat dominated the Milwaukee Bucks and won the series in 5 games, shocking the world against the team that was probably the heaviest favorite to win the East this season. And in that series, the Miami Heat showed me 2 things. They can't be bullied in the paint, as the Milwaukee Bucks were one of the most solid teams in the paint, and they were able to out-rebound them, outscore them in the paint, and they were just looking dominant in the paint. And the Boston Celtics, on the other hand, coming in, I looked at the Boston Celtics as a team that had great starters, but with Gordon Hayward's injury, they may not have enough depth to run through and win the East this season. But the Raptors proved that number 4 defense was all they needed in order to make it into the Eastern Conference Finals. Since getting to the bubble, the Celtics have become the best perimeter defense in the entire league. They're allowing like 25% from 3. You can't shoot anything on them. And that could coincide with the Miami Heat, who just happen to be the second best 3-point shooting team in the entire league in terms of 3-point shooting percentage. And not to mention, the Celtics have 2 of the best wing duos in the entire league. Everyone talks about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but I think it's time for the rest of the league to look into Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is going to give you the offensive edge. He's already an offensive star. I mean, his performance in Game 7 against the Toronto Raptors was a historical one. Jason Tatum became the second youngest player in playoff history with 25 plus points, 10 plus rebounds, 5 plus assists in a Game 7 since Kobe Bryant himself.
Rest in peace.
And Jaylen Brown is a 20 plus points per game scorer, but what really makes him special is how he stepped up, especially since the bubble started, on the defensive end. He shut down Pascal Siakam. Like, we could not find Pascal Siakam in this series. Pascal Siakam's performance was one of the biggest letdowns in Toronto since the Raptors drafted Andre Bargnani in the first round. And I'm going to have to give a lot of that credit to Jaylen Brown. And of course, I didn't forget Marcus Smart. He was the player I didn't account for. I didn't account for him to be that effective offensively, and the way he played defense, he basically had the game-winning block in Game 7 against the Raptors. Now, on the other hand, you have Jimmy Buckets himself, all right? Jimmy Butler looking like the most unstoppable player in the NBA. He is leading this very balanced Miami Heat team with veterans, young players, 3-point shooters, guys who can score in the paint, guys who could defend the perimeter, guys who could defend the paint. This is a really well-balanced Miami Heat team. But one of the biggest differences outside of Jimmy Butler is Goran Dragic. I thought he was going to be really important in order for them to upset the Bucks. His dribble penetration, driving in and kicking it out to all the shooters, Crowder, whether it be Duncan Robinson, whether it be Olynyk, even Derrick Jones was getting into the threes. The Miami Heat got shooters everywhere. And since he's such a consistent threat with 3-point shooting and those little floaters he likes to do, the step back jumpers he has, and the Miami Heat have been able to use him for dribble penetration, pick and roll opportunities. He's a great passer. The Dragon is here. And just like in the matchup against the Bucks with Eric Bledsoe, he's gonna have to face a very good defender in Marcus Smart. So now the question is, the reason you're here, you're trying to find out who's gonna win, man. You've been making all of these picks. Just tell us who's gonna win. The big advantage that Miami has that the Raptors did not have is the fact that they're a much more well-balanced offense. They have bigs like Kelly Olynyk who could shoot the ball. They have Bam Adebayo who's expanded his game with the mid-rangers, and he can dominate in the paint. And the Raptors didn't really have that. Like, Marc Gasol was just getting excellent exercise, just walking around being very unproductive. They weren't respecting his shot, and his perimeter defense was looking very subpar. And Serge Ibaka on the offensive side, this man thinks he's Steph Curry. I've never seen a big man shoot that many 3-pointers in a game. But with Bam, they have a guy that could switch onto a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum, and it won't be a complete mismatch. He could protect the paint, he won't get bullied on the boards, and with that scoring outing he showed against one of the best interior defenses in the Milwaukee Bucks, I think he's going to have a very big series. And not to mention, they have Jimmy Butler, who even when he's not scoring field goals, he was getting to the free throw line. I don't think that stops. Jimmy Butler does not care who's guarding him. He will get to the free throw line and he will get the defender in foul trouble. He did that against the Bucks, and I believe he can do that against the Celtics. So even if the Celtics are able to slow down Crowder and Duncan Robinson and the three-point shooting the Miami Heat have, all hope will not be lost. And another matchup nightmare that the Raptors faced against the Celtics, the Heat don't have to face, is the Raptors like to push the ball, get on fast breaks, and the Celtics were really good at stopping that. They were getting turnovers and they were scoring on these fast break opportunities. The Miami Heat, they like to slow it down. They're not a fast break team. They're one of the slower paced teams in the NBA. So I think they'll be able to limit their turnovers against the Celtics, and that's going to be a big thing to watch. Now on the Celtics side of things, Gordon Hayward, I did see him warm up, and as a Miami Heat fan, I kind of got a little scared to see Gordon Hayward warming up, because if he comes back, he was an 18 points per game scorer, and that Celtics offense that wasn't really looking that high motored against the Raptors could pose a huge threat to the Miami Heat. But I'm going to base my decision based off of the roster that they currently have put together. And as I mentioned, the one thing that the Celtics were kind of mediocre at was their offensive game. I've mentioned this before. They have Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. Yes, those guys are buckets. They can score 20 plus points per game. But the rest of the Celtics roster, especially the bench, offensively have been non-existent all year long. And they're gonna need Marcus Smart to have the production level he had against the Raptors in this series against the Miami Heat. Because oftentimes in that Raptor series, I did see the Celtics get a little lead. Then when Tatum or Brown sit down, that lead just starts to go away just because the bench can't maintain that scoring. And I don't think they can suffocate the Miami Heat offense like they did with the Raptors, just because of how balanced the Miami Heat are. Now in their actual matchups this season, the Celtics won 2 of their 3 matchups that they played. I will say at times the Heat haven't had answers for Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kemba Walker. But I think the thing that gave them a big edge was having Gordon Hayward. So to make up for the lack of depth, I think that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going to have a huge series. Jason Tatum, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because they're going to need more scoring from him to keep up in this series. But Jaylen Brown, I believe, is the key player for the Celtics. And it's because of what he brings on the offensive side of the ball, but really what he brings to the defensive side of the ball. This man is slowly turning into one of the better wing defenders in the league. He has the athleticism, the speed, the IQ to keep up with almost anyone. He could block your shots, he could guard the perimeter. He could even guard Siakam when he was driving into the paint. So if they match him up against like a Jimmy Butler, that could be a serious challenge that the Heat face. But the Heat also have wing defenders like Derrick Jones Jr., Crowder, Iguodala that they could put on a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown, and they could switch off those screen and rolls the Celtics like to do. But when it comes down to it, I'm actually going to pick the Miami Heat. I'm going to have them winning this series in 6 games. But I could see the Celtics getting Gordon Hayward back in the middle of this series, so I could see the series being pushed to 7 games. At the end of the day, the reason why the Celtics were able to win against the Raptors is they were able to overcome their lack of depth by playing enough defense to keep it close in games and have their really good scorers close out games, and the Raptors simply just didn't have a player that you can just go to for closing out games, like when they had Kawhi Leonard. But this Heat team has a Jimmy Butler. They have a Goran Dragic who can get inside penetration. They have kick-out shooters all over. They have the wing defenders to guard you. They have Bam Adebayo to dominate on the boards, in the paint, score on you, and really take advantage to some of that small ball lineup the Celtics like to run. And I don't see the Celtics getting the big leads that they had against the Raptors, just because the Heat have enough offensive prowess to keep up with you. And when your starters start to sit, their bench players are going to come in and they're just going to do more scoring. The Heat have a 4th quarter lineup that they're very comfortable with plenty of experience. The Heat are known for their ball movement. They can pass the ball around, they can stretch the floor with their shooting, and they can cook you in the paint. Hey Miami Heat Nation, let's take this all the way to the finals, baby! Thanks for watching this video, guys. Please leave a like, it really helps out the YouTube algorithm. I'm gonna continue posting more content, so please go ahead and subscribe. I got NBA content coming out, I got NFL content coming out. We're gonna be on the rise. Stay safe out there, enjoy the rest of the playoffs. I'ma see y'all.
On me, Majima, that's me. Majima the king, the grand is my scene. But I'm coming to sunshine, bring the tree. I'm finna banyan, up in the bee.